Hello and welcome once again to the Story Shed. Hope that you're all well and taking good care. It's a little bit rainy here, I'm afraid, at the moment, so you'll probably hear raindrops on the roof of the shed. But I'm hoping that that won't put you off the story and that you'll enjoy it all the same. And this story is from my world of fairy tales. It's called The Witch in the Woods. So sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy the tale. There was once a poor orphan girl called Goethe, who worked as a servant to a very rich family. Goethe was gentle and kind, and the family liked her so much that whenever they went on holiday, they took her with them. One holiday, the family decided to go for a long trip through the mountains. They were enjoying themselves very much, and all went well until they came to a lonely stretch of road with woods on either side. Suddenly, a band of fierce robbers sprang from the trees, and before anyone knew what was happening, the robber chief cut free the horses, upturned the carriage, and killed Goethe's master and mistress. Trembling with fright, Goethe herself hid behind a boulder, and then, when the robbers were looking the other way, she escaped into the woods and ran and ran and ran. And when at last she could run no further, she threw herself down on the grass and wept as if her heart would break. She had loved her master and mistress, for they were all that she had in the world. But Goethe was as brave as she was gentle and kind. And when darkness fell, she dried her eyes and said aloud, "I will stay where I am, for there would be little chance of finding the way out of these woods now. Perhaps some good angels will take care of me." No sooner had she spoken than a beautiful white dove flew down from one of the trees. It had a tiny gold key in its beak, and this it put into Goethe's hand. Then it said softly into her ear, "Over there is a great tree, and set in the tree is a little lock. Open it with this golden key, and you will find something to eat." Goethe took the key over to the tree, fitted it into the lock, and as she turned it, a door swung open. Inside, she found a loaf of white bread and a bowl of creamy milk, and she was so hungry and thirsty that she ate all the bread and drank all the milk there and then. But when she looked around for the dove to say thank you, she couldn't see it anywhere. Later that night, the dove came to her again. It placed another tiny key in her hand and told her to go once more to the tree. "Open it," the dove said quietly. "Inside you will find a bed where you can sleep." Obediently, Goethe went to the tree, and using her key she opened it, and inside was a bed made up with fine linen sheets, and it looked so comfortable and inviting that Goethe tumbled into it and fell fast asleep. In the morning, the dove came to her for a third time, and for the third time it put a tiny key into her hand, saying, "Do you see that tree to the right of you? Open the door, and you will find dresses to wear while you're in the woods." Goethe obeyed, and there inside the tree were so many wonderful dresses that she caught her breath in astonishment. "Any one of these will make me look like a princess," she said out loud. She chose a dress of shimmering silver and blue, and pulled it over her own shabby dress with its patched skirt. And oh, how pretty she looked, though there was no one there to see her. As the days passed, Goethe no longer thought of trying to find her way out of the woods. The dove came to her each morning to see to her needs, and although it never stayed longer than 2 hours, Goethe longed for its visits, and in time grew to love the gentle bird. One morning, the dove said to her, "Will you do something for me?" And Goethe answered, "I will do anything you ask. Anything at all. So please, what is it you want me to do? I want you to follow me through the wood, said the dove. I will take you to a small house where an old woman lives. What shall I say to her? Goethe wanted to know. Say nothing, the dove answered. Do not speak a single word, but pass her by on the right side, and when you're in the house, search for a room that is full of rings. Oh, what shall I do then? Goethe asked. You must look for the plainest of the rings, said the dove. You will see many rings that are so beautiful and so enriched with jewels that you will want to try them on. But if you care anything for me, you will leave these beautiful rings and take the one that is without a stone and that is plain and ordinary. Slip it on your little finger and come back to me here. I promise I will do as you say, Goethe whispered, already half afraid of the old woman she even hadn't met yet. Could she be some kind of wicked witch? Before she had time to question the dove further, the bird flew away, and Goethe was forced to run after it. After what seemed a long time, and when Goethe was beginning to feel she could scarcely take another step, the dove flew back to her. Beyond that clump of trees stands the house. I can go no further. Remember what I've said. Take the plainest of the rings and speak no word. The little house that Goethe came upon looked like any other, but the old woman who stood on the steps was ugly and bent, and her red eyes were sharply inquisitive, as if they fixed themselves upon the girl. Good day to you, she croaked. And what would you be wanting with me? Speak, child, don't be afraid. But Goethe, remembering the dove's warning, answered not a single word. As quickly as she could, she passed the old woman on her right side and entered the house. Once inside, she ran from room to room until at last she came upon the room that was filled with rings. Never in all her life had Goethe seen such wonderful rings. There were diamond rings set in bands of twisted gold that shimmered in the sunlight, ruby rings that glowed as if they contained a secret fire, and rings set with pearls the size of pebbles. Some were so small that they would only fit a child's finger, but others were just right for her own slender hands, and oh, how Goethe longed to try them on. Just in time, she remembered the dove's warning, and with a sigh, she began to search for the plain, ordinary ring that the dove had told her about. But, search as she might, there was no sign of a plain gold band amongst all the glittering rings that shimmered and sparkled on the table and on the chairs. As she began for the third time to search the room, the old woman came to the open door. "Help yourself, child," she croaked. "I'm too old for such pretty things. Tell me, which of the rings do you like the best?" When Goethe made no reply, the old woman hobbled away, and Goethe crept to the door to see what she would do next. She saw her stretch up and take a bird's wicker cage from a hook in the wall, and then she saw, and how her heart began to beat, that inside the cage was a small brown bird that held a plain gold ring in its beak. Goethe sprang towards the old woman, snatched the cage from her hand and opened it. The witch tried to push her away, but Goethe was too strong and too quick for her. In a trice, the ring was on her finger, and she was running out of the house and along and away through the woods. To her surprise and disappointment, the dove was not waiting for her when she got back. "I have the ring," she thought, "and I've done everything it asked. Why doesn't the dove come to me?" And because she was tired and disappointed, she leant up against one of the trees and began silently to weep. Then something very wonderful happened. The self same tree changed into a tall, handsome young man who put his arm round Goethe and began speaking to her in the very voice that the dove had used. Goethe, my little Goethe, he said, I am your dove. You have freed me from an enchantment that held me bound for part of the day as a tree and for part of the day as a dove. The old woman was a witch who, out of spite against my father the king, worked her evil spell on me. It could only be broken by a girl such as you, who would find the ring and wear it on her little finger. Then the king's son took Goethe out of the woods into his father's kingdom, where not long after they were married and lived happily ever after. And that was the story of The Witch in the Woods. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please let us know if there are any stories that you'd like to hear, if you've written any yourselves that you'd like to send in to us to read, and maybe some poetry or pictures, anything at all. Just write, say hello even, to the storyshedblog@gmail.com. That's the storyshedblog@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And for now, take care, be well, and bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.